Good morning. Welcome to the Cybersecurity Studio. I'm your host, John Dittmer. Today is Sunday, March 29th, 2020. Today I would like to discuss how organizations can have their personnel operate effectively and securely while working remotely. As many of you out there know, that a lot of organizations, and probably including some of yours, have been working remotely now for the last few weeks. A lot of times people had to kind of scramble to make procedures and policies that work for them. And so I'll discuss some of those. The coronavirus crisis has sparked a digital transformation in how people work. A lot of my colleagues out there have been writing about it. One particularly good article I saw was written by a Navy friend of mine, retired Rear Admiral Danelle Barrett, USN. She has written the top on this topic in the article, COVID-19 Out of Crisis, Come Opportunities for Digital Transformation. I put a URL up there, so if you want to take a look at the Admiral's writing, it's really good and really informative. And I kind of use it as a framework for this particular video. In the last weeks, there have been a lot of surprises in how things work, and maybe there weren't surprises if you thought about it, but a lot of times we don't exercise plans and so on. Now, most organizations, either by regulation, law, policy, and so on, they're required to have contingency plans that are supposed to be ready for a contingency. Now, some of these plans are coming up short. For one thing, they haven't really been exercised in a major extent. A lot of times organizations might have a mandate to exercise those plans, but sometimes it's just a tabletop exercise and they call it a day. They haven't really tried stressing the system and seeing how much it could take of, like, all these new users, calling in at the same time, or people using up their video bandwidth or so on. So a lot of this so there's not a lot of lessons learned. So I want to bring some considerations up. In a lot of cases, people are using their either organization devices or personal devices or a combination of both. In my particular situation, I support a government agency that has its own VPN, which allows me to take one of the agency's laptops would be home so I could do work, which is great, especially during this crisis. And so what I do is I connect to the agency's network through what is known as a virtual private network, or as most of us in the business know, as a VPN. It's basically an encryption tunnel to the agency's network. It's worked in a combination with a smart card. So in order for me to connect, I have to have the right encryption, I have to have a smart card and a PIN, and it's very secure. Okay. Now, when I connect to the agency's network, I'm subject to that agency's policies and rules. And sometimes they block websites that I may need to do work. So, how do we work? How do we get around this? Me being the go-getter, I'm trying to get things done. Now, I can ignore those policies and come up with some magical workaround while on the network, but that's a little bit dangerous, especially me as a security guy. I may lose my job, I may lose my career, and I kind of like my job, I kind of like what I do for a living, so I'd rather not do that. Second is just say, sorry guys, can't do it, you guys have blocked the resources, I can't get to this website, boo-hoo, and it loses my effectiveness. No, that's going to ruin my reputation. Also, too, I'd really like to get things done. Third, I could, let me see, how do I say this? I could get my own laptop and go to those resources outside of the agency's network. A lot of them are just, they're not in the dark web or something. Some of these are even just websites that may be a little bit shaky. This way is sort of like I can keep that separate from the agency's network, don't put it at risk. It's my own laptop. I'll accept the risk and go from there. All right, so that's another consideration that works for me. That way, if something goes wrong, it's my laptop, the agency is not involved, no risk has occurred. Okay. So, and another course of action would be ask for permission. Hasn't changed the policies, but in my experience, the odds are they're going to say no, or if they even say yes, it's going to take a long time. So that may not be effective. So that's why I choose kind of using the 2 laptop method. This way it's safer and poses the least amount of risk. Okay. Another piece of advice is that when you're setting up a lot of these resources is carefully review your policies, your procedures, and resources against the needs of your organization's essential missions. According to recent reports, many organizations have found that these resources, policies, personnel, and all that are not capable of supporting their essential missions on a massive scale. Okay? Because a lot of times, think about it. If you have a contingency, an emergency, sometimes you might need to call up a lot of people or hire a lot of people or call up your reservists or bring back people who retired and say, hey, we need your help for X number, for a few months. Or bring in contractors, depending on what the particular situation is. If you remember 9/11, I mean, there was people who used to be firemen, and they went back to New York and said, "Hey, I'll volunteer to be a fireman for a few months to help out." Things like that. So, and then also too, a lot of the intelligence community agencies went on a hiring spree because they needed people who understood certain languages. So when you're setting up your policies and setting up your resources, be ready for a possible massive influx of people using your networks. Also a massive influx, especially in this case, where people are dialing in from the outside, inside to use the resources. Okay? And a lot of times this isn't happening for several reasons. Contingency projects have been unfunded through the annual rounds of budget cutting. Nobody has infinite resources, especially if you're talking about government agencies, which are continuously being forced to cut their budgets or slow their spending. It's always been a challenge, and a lot of people think, what's going to get me to the next year? And they don't think of things up. Well, I want to create enough bandwidth to handle, an influx of 50% more people. I've got to be able to have multiple hot sites to be able to operate. Okay, I mean, unless you really make a pressing case about somebody else's mission need, a lot of times that's going to get voted down. So now we have a case, and you have I would say gather your lessons learned and use it to your best extent. So that's why I say scale is a big issue. Okay, and especially where a lot of times contingency plans are based on short-term events. You're geared towards an earthquake. Hey, earthquake, took down site A. We're going to operate from site B, and hopefully have everything back running up at site A within a week or two. Now we're looking at a situation where we got a contingency that may last months, so on an ongoing basis. All right. So what we have to do now is when we start setting up our resources, setting up our policies, and so on, be able to continue operating for months, maybe years. And just keep that in mind. Another thing is that the way we're doing business now in a coronavirus world is that we're doing a lot of business via audio or video teleconferencing. Okay. Now, a lot of times it's like we're using a lot of tools out there like Skype or Zoom or Google Hangouts. These are great tools, but they take up a lot of bandwidth. So when you're setting up your infrastructure, be able to account for this influx of using these tools that take up a lot of bandwidth. I know I'm repeating myself, but I'm trying to emphasize a point. I'll give you a personal example. In my current work, I have about 10 to 12 teleconferences a week right now. Government client wants to know what the contractors are doing. The PM of the contractors want to know what his or her folks are doing. A lot of times people have to get together to collaborate. So that involves people talking with each other, people showing stuff. Hey, here's my PowerPoint presentation. Does it look good to show the client? Stuff like that. Or here's a new configuration management plan. Take a read at it, and then we'll talk about it for an hour afterwards. That kind of thing. All right, so that's the reason why I say you got to take a look at your infrastructure, be able to handle that. Also, too, may have your processes be ready so everybody knows what phone number to call and what passcode you're going to use and what time, and have a means to reach people in case there are problems. We've had to do a lot of informal texting of telephone numbers and passcodes. It was like an informal thing that was set up. You might want to do is for future use, have a backup telephone number and passcode ready, and be able to send that out in a hurry, either by text or email or whatever you have, and be able to do things that way. Okay. Another thing you got to get in consideration is that you're going to have to change your culture a little bit. You have to find a way that supervisors have to be able to trust their people to take their own initiative and effectively get the work done and meet their goals. Okay. Too often, a lot of people have had that industrial age mindset. I got to watch you hit the keyboards. You may not know what I'm doing. You may not know what your workers are doing, but you see them working on the keyboard. You see them at the desk. Make sure that they're not watching YouTube videos or whatever, and and so on and so on. We gotta learn to trust people, especially at home. You can't come to my place. You want to come to my place, fine, but I think you got other things to do than hang out here, look over my shoulder for 8 hours a day. Okay. I'm a big boy. I know what work needs to be done. I know I know how to ask questions if I have an issue. On the other side, let's flip it around. Let's talk about what employees need to do. Employees need to be able to have those skills to say, hey, I could, this is what I'm working on today. Here's some of the challenges. Be able to ask questions. Employees need to be able to understand that, hey, have that discipline. Come down here, get ready to work. Put on a clean shirt and make yourself look presentable if there's going to be a video teleconferencing going on, and be able to have that discipline to do the work and be available. And even if they got to do something like the middle of the day, like run errands, at least be able to check their email on a regular basis, at least, an hour, every hour or so. Just make sure how things are going. Don't leave people hanging, because believe me, supervisors can get very suspicious if you're not responsive to emails or texts or calls. So you got to have that discipline of staying on top of things. It may be instead of sitting at the desk between 9 to 5, it may be like you get to the desk at 9 o'clock, and you might take breaks to do things, but you're still checking emails throughout the day. You might say, okay, I'm going to work a solid block from 9 to noon, take an hour break. Come back to the desk at 1 or so till about 3 o'clock. Take a break. Go work from 4 to 6 or 7, depending on your personal situation. But you got to be able to keep checking emails. Just make sure that things aren't left hanging, especially with supervisors. So you see what I mean? You're kind of changing the culture of work. You got to have those processes in place. It takes a little bit of trust on both sides. It might take a little bit, you might be stretching the workday, throughout the day, but you might take breaks, but you still got to stay on top of things. Okay, so that's what I say. You might have to be changing the corporate culture a little bit. Now, in the course of this video, I've discussed the challenges of digital transformation of the workplace, but I also offer some solutions to these challenges. In addition, there's some articles on the topic if you want to learn more. I'll put the URLs up there. I hope you, and also too, one thing is Take lessons learned. Write down what seems to work, what doesn't work. Put it on a shared site someplace. Put your policies and procedures there. Especially when especially if you have new people coming in, you say, "Hey, John, you're going to have to work remotely. It might be a while. Here's some lessons learned. Go to this place and take a look. Download anything. If you got any questions, feel free to ask, and so on." I hope you found this video useful. If you do, please hit the like button and subscribe if you're on YouTube. If you're on Patreon, please consider becoming a patron for my videos. I would love to have your support to make better and more professional videos that are a lot more informative. Thank you for watching, and have a great and safe day. Have a good day. Bye.